I mean, you could try.
Welcome to the village board meeting of July 8th. Please join us in our pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Welcome, Ms. Flores.
Here, Joan, here. Here.
Here. Here. Here.
Here.
Here. Representing staff this evening, to my left, our village manager Napoleon Heaney, to my right, our village attorney Chris Cummings. To the audience's right, our police chief Denise McGrath, fire chief Bob Zerbowski, finance director Amy Zakowski, economic and community development director Angela Maceras, public works director Joshua Berman, and assistant village manager Karen Sakwa. The minutes of June 24th, any additions or corrections? Trustee Harris.
Nothing for me.
Trustee Miller.
No.
Trustee Atkins. Trustee Simpson. Trustee Jason.
No, sir.
Trustee Roman.
Nothing.
I have a motion to approve the minutes, please.
So, second.
It's been moved by trustee Hyperman, seconded by trustee Mason. Roll call, please.
Trustee Harris Jones. Aye. Trustee Willis.
Abstain.
Trustee Hyman.
Aye.
Trustee Kingston.
Aye.
Trustee Mason.
Aye.
Trustee Willis.
Abstain.
The minutes are approved. The claims list in the amount of $528,081.49. Comments and questions again? Trustee
Nothing.
Harris.
Nothing for
Trustee
me.
Willis.
No. No
Trustee
comment.
Hyperman. Trustee Simpson. Trustee Mason.
No, sir.
Trustee Roman.
Nothing for me.
I have a motion to approve the claims list, please.
So much. Second.
Been moved by trustee Roman, seconded by trustee Harris Jones. Roll call, please.
Trustee Harris Jones.
Aye.
Trustee Willis.
Aye.
Trustee Hyman.
Aye.
Trustee Kingston.
Aye.
Trustee Mason.
Aye.
Trustee Willis.
Aye.
The claims list is approved. Of that $528,000 claims list, one item comprised the majority of that list. 1 month's employee's health insurance was $297,000, 56% of that claims list. Hear from the audience. If anyone would like to address the audience, the board on any subject not on the agenda, please raise your hand. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Jackie Riffus. I'm a longtime resident of the Homewood Flossmoor area, a few years in Homewood and the rest in Flossmoor. And I wanted to invite you and those here in the Homewood Flossmoor community to something I recently cooked up. I say recently, but it's actually been boiling for a very long time. So if you'll indulge me for a few minutes, I'd appreciate it. I read something in the Homewood Flossmoor Chronicle published on May 1st, 2025. Eric Crump's viewpoint column was titled, "Listening and Learning Are Keys to Fighting Racism." It was an eye-opening, attention-grabbing article, especially coming from a white guy. He closed the article with this: "Defeating racism requires rewiring our culture, and that starts with reading and listening intently, intentionally, and often. We're in this together, so one thing we as a community can do is read more and read together." So read books together, listening intently and intentionally. I was inspired, to say the least. I've been thinking about this for a really long time. So I did this thing that I'd like to share with you and those who are listening. Picture a community book club that meets every other month to converse about a selected title. We call it Books Without Borders. Imagine a safe space to listen, learn, and connect, especially when it comes to race and community. Imagine open minds, diverse perspectives, and meaningful dialogue. Imagine finding all of the things we have in common. I don't know if you see it, but I do. The selected book we want to talk about is this one. It's called So You Want to Talk About Race by Ijeoma Oluo. The book is an excellent title on race and privilege, including white privilege. It's written in a conversational tone and is ideal for adults who want a clear, honest introduction to these topics. The Rock Shop here in Homewood will stock copies of the books for purchase, and inside each book will be questions to ponder as you're reading and keywords and phrases that we should know about. Our first Books Without Borders discussion is September 11th, 2025 at the Rock Shop from 6:45 to 8 o'clock. I think a successfully diverse community thrives when there is mutual respect and open communication among its members, allowing different voices to be heard and valued. A commitment to ongoing dialogue, learning, and collaboration is key to sustaining a vibrant community. I have a lifelong investment in this community, and I want us to become as united and resilient as we can possibly be. So I invite you and all those that are listening to follow Books Without Borders on Facebook and on Instagram for updated information. I'd like this to be a lasting effort that will continue year after year after year with titles and other media that we can learn from. And I hope you'll consider joining me for this grand experiment.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Please.
My name is Barb Lawler, and I had the privilege of attending the Citizens Civic Academy last fall, which if anyone here has the opportunity to sign up for it, I highly recommend it. It was a fabulous program. I've never been a great history government stuff in high school or anything like that, but it's been invigorating. So at that fall agenda, one night, I asked Napoleon a question, which I would like to raise again. It's related to the 183rd Street road diet, they call it, where I know we spent a lot of money investigating into it and approving it. And I want to raise the question of where we're at with that at this point. I know you kind of said that it wasn't moving along, but I just wanted to keep it alive.
So we do have money in, well, not money, we've requested to fund a stoplight actually at 183rd and Center to do a phase one. Obviously, there's some planning, engineering that has to be done. So that's what we're planning. That's our next step. And that's it's not funded yet, but we have it in our capital plan. I can't remember what year that is, but I can let you know what year that is that we funded it for, but that's our next step to get that light in at 183rd Street and Center.
Anyone? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, Amy Crump, Homewood, Illinois. Continuing to read excerpts of the book On Tyranny by Timothy Snyder. And going along with your announcement, this chapter is actually about reading. So it's one of my favorites so far. This is called Chapter 9, and it's Be Kind to Our Language. Think up your own way of speaking. Make an effort to separate yourself from the internet. Read books. Victor Klemperer, a literary scholar of Jewish origin, turned his training against Nazi propaganda. He noticed how Hitler's language rejected legitimate opposition. The people always meant some people and not others. An American president said, "My people." Encounters were always struggles, and any attempt to understand the world in a different way was a defamation of the leader, or as an American president put it, treason. Politicians in our times feed their cliches to television, where even those who wish to disagree repeat them. Watching televised news is sometimes little more than looking at a person who is also looking at a picture. We take this collective trance to be normal, and we have slowly fallen into it. More than half a century ago, the classic novels of totalitarianism warned of the domination of screens, the suppression of books, the narrowing of vocabularies, and the associated difficulties of thought. Ray Bradbury's Fahrenheit 451, published in 1953, had firemen finding and burning books while most citizens watched interactive TV. In George Orwell's 1984, published in 1949, books were banned and television was two-way, allowing the government to observe citizens at all times. Staring at screens is perhaps unavoidable, but the two-dimensional world makes little sense unless we can draw upon a mental armory that we have developed somewhere else. So, surround yourself with books. The characters in Orwell and Bradbury's books could not do this, but we still can. What to read? Any good novel enlivens our ability to think about ambiguous situations and judge the intent of others. The Brothers Karamazov, or The Unbearable Lightness of Being, or The Plot Against America. There are even children's books that feature tyranny and resistance to them. Some of the political and historical texts that inform the arguments made in this book are George Orwell's The Politics in the English Language, The Language of the Third Reich by Victor Klemperer, Origins of Totalitarianism by Hannah Arendt, The Rebel by Albert Camus, The Captive Mind by a Polish guy who I can't pronounce, How to Be a Conservative Liberal Socialist, another Polish author, The Uses of Adversity, Burden of Responsibility, Ordinary Men, and Nothing is True and Everything is Possible. Christians might return even to the foundational book, which is as timely as ever. Jesus preached that it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of God. And of course, we must be concerned with what is true and what is false. And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. And as I mentioned before, this effort is going to be taking place in the streets. The next opportunity for anyone to get involved is on John Lewis's birthday, July 17th. Good Trouble Lives On is the name of the rally, and it's from 5:30 to 8 o'clock in the Daily Plaza. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board this evening? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Kristen Selkis. I'm a Homewood resident. I actually had the same question that Barb had about the 183rd road diet. I don't feel like that question was really answered to me. So what is going on with the road diet?
So the village did a lot of work many years ago, and we put up the cones and the barrels to kind of prove out the traffic damage and the traffic flow. From that, we received a lot of data. We have that data that we can show. It's on the website. The next step, rationally, we know that there's an issue at 183rd and Center, right? We know that's a hot place of contention. When this first started, that's where the ground zero was with a lot of the complaints and the concerns. So we've made the board has made the decision to kind of put that on our capital plan. Amy, can you look that up?
Fiscal year 28, so.
Fiscal year 28. So and it's very expensive to get a light at that intersection. So that would be our rational next step.
I'm just confused about what the light has to do with the traffic study. I didn't think that was in the traffic study at all.
Well, it was
the road diet at all.
It was our understanding that that's where a lot of the problems were happening at 183rd and Center. So I'm not sure. I'm not an engineer. I'm not a traffic design engineer, but that's our rational next step, is to try to figure out a way to calm that specific intersection with the traffic signal.
But a traffic light wasn't in the traffic study, or it was?
I can't, Josh, you're gonna have to.
I believe it was in the study, and that's what the cost for phase 1, phase 2 engineering for IDOT was gonna entail. There's obviously, 183rd is a very long street. There's significant costs in evaluating all that, but the stem of it happened to be the point of sharing the accidents that occurred at Center and 183rd. We took efforts to do delineators. It did have some calming. We've seen some things in the motorcycle accident not too long ago. So It's very much alive, what we're looking to do, we have it obviously planned in CIP, but, we're just working towards that.
Well, one of the things that's important is enforcement. Chief, if you could address the current traffic enforcement that we're doing on the main streets.
Speeding enforcement on some of our main thoroughfares that we get a lot of claims on, including 183rd Bridge, 187th, and Governor's Highway is another street that we get a lot of. So we've added additional detail enforcement that is directed just for traffic enforcement.
Okay, so I'm hearing there's gonna be a traffic light and more enforcement of speeding, but no road diet. I'm not hearing anything about a road diet.
But that's where it stands right now.
So
Right.
I'm just, where does the road diet fit in? I'm really having trouble putting this together. Is there no road diet? There's a traffic light, there's speeding enforcement, but there's no road diet.
And I think part of why we tested this road diet concept was we needed data. We didn't want to just close the road down. We have a casino, we have policy. We didn't want to just shut the road down to a couple of lanes and not understand the impact that it would have to the other neighborhoods. So I think moving slow at this point, not necessarily moving slow, but being methodical about some of the decisions that we make as it relates to 183rd Street is probably the wisest way to go, rather than say, let's implement a road diet and then have catastrophic issues with side streets and adjacent streets. We understood that again, ground zero of the entire, all of the complaints that we had that precipitated this entire road diet pilot study was Center and 183rd Street. So as Josh said, we put those delineators there, they've helped, but we understand that that's a hot intersection. We want to make sure we provide some kind of safe measurements for that intersection moving forward. And somewhere down the line, those decisions will have to be made somewhere down the line. And that may not ever satisfy your question, but that's all, transparency. That's all I have right now.
So let me make sure I have this straight. There is already increased enforcement, so there's already action being done. The next step is gonna be the stoplight. The road diet is a potential next step.
It's down the road.
It's down the road after the stoplight. So
Down
that's
the
like the
road.
priority. of
And I
funding.
think it'll be further evaluated if the traffic signal goes in.
Thank you.
Sure. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board this evening? Yes, sir, Mr. Landry.
Good evening, Mayor, trustees, DOYLE, D's and David RY, as a United States Marine Corps veteran. So, 1 point for idea, 2nd point for awareness, 3rd point for definite action. So the idea, still need an incubator for young people in, meaning the business ideas, when you sit down and you listen and you think, wow, how come I haven't thought about that before? Something that other similar sized villages have done. And again, when you grow the youth, it eventually reaps a plentiful harvest. So do respect the time, especially for the definite action item. That idea, a youth incubator, entrepreneurship, awareness. Since that big, beautiful bill was passed, the mental health awareness of senior citizens in Homewood with regard to how do I pay for my prescriptions? Trickle down, Medicaid. It would be ideal if your listening posts, particularly Mayor, with regard to on Saturdays, that senior citizens are encouraged to come so they can be assured that no matter what, they won't be failed, because again, seniors deserve better. So regardless of what you think of, meaning political parties in the room of that bill, if you're an elder and you hear Medicaid, you think about your health, and mental health is real when you think you can't take care of yourself. So awareness. Finally, I wonder how many of you in, being on the dais. Do you ever go inside your employee's office? Meaning, actually work for the Village of Homewood? Because I saw something the last time that I was here that definitely has to be removed. And just being upfront. Like, it's worse than having a trustee who graduated from Kenwood. I need to say that, it's that dire. That the mayor, when you last saw me and I was inside that person's office and I was thinking to myself, how do I remove that ugly thing from the wall? So the employee knows who I'm addressing and he knows what needs to be removed from the wall and that's the action. I'm like, it really needs to be removed. So that's not talking in code, that's literally knowing that there's 6 people to the left. And he knows what needs to be removed from the wall. So with that being said, thanks very much as always, and see you next time.
Thank you, sir.
Go Buckeyes.
Yeah, what Mr. Landry was referring to, if I may say.
That's a Ohio Buckeye emblem in the Assistant Village Manager's office.
Always.
A little bit of college rivalry. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board this evening? If not, Ms. Flores, the end of the vote.
We ask the board to consider a motion for tax approve, authorize, accept, or award the following items. To approve a budget amendment in the amount of $81,267 for general fund in order to meet the village's obligation to afford a homeowner for increased sales tax revenue for the sales tax sharing agreement dated February 23rd, 2022. Authorize the village manager to enter into professional services agreement with HR Granting of New Lenox, Illinois, an amount not to exceed $24,095 for engineering and design services related to the construction of high visibility crosswalks in the downtown area. Pass ordinance M2361, authorizing the village manager to sell, trade in, or dispose of electronic equipment listed as surplus property. As ordinance M2362, authorizing the village president to enter into a redevelopment agreement and purchase and sale agreement with PWP Homewood LLC for village owned property located at 3003 to 3025 183rd Street, the Park West Plaza, contingent upon final approval by the village council. Waive competitive bidding in order to secure access to high-speed internet services that meet operational and infrastructure needs. Approval budget amendment of $22,000 and authorize the village president to enter into contract with Urban ComNet of Oak Forest, Illinois, in the amount of $214,800 for a period of 60 months. Approve a 3-year collective bargaining agreement between the village of Homewood and the Metropolitan Alliance of Police Chapter 611 for patrol officers. Retroactive to date May 1st, 2025, and extending through April 30th, 2028. And approve a 3-year collective bargaining agreement between the village of Homewood and the Metropolitan Alliance of Police Chapter 622 for the sergeants, retroactive to May 1st, 2025, and extending to April 30th, 2028. Approval of corresponding cost of living adjustment for non-municipal employees, retroactive to May 1st, 2025. And to pass the ordinance M2363, authorizing the village president to enter into a lease extension and modification agreement with the Homewood Arts Council for the Homewood Auditorium located at 2010 Chestnut Road on a month-to-month basis effective July 1st, 2025, until renovation work necessitates termination on further adjustments. H is to pass an ordinance M2364, authorizing the village president to extend the lease agreement with T-Mobile for cell tower space at 18355 Clear Avenue for an additional 5 years, ending on December 8th, 2030.
Thank you. I have been informed that item E will be deferred because it's pending further legal review. It's a collective bargaining agreement with Matt. I'm sorry, item F, not item E. Anything? Did you want to add anything? Okay. Any comments or questions from anyone in the audience with regard to these matters? If not, board comments, trustee Harris Jones,
Nothing for me.
trustee Willis.
Glad to see that some crosswalk safety improvements are being made.
Trustee Heckman. I have nothing. Trustee Simpson. I'm not. Trustee Mason.
Nothing.
Trustee Roman. May I have a motion to approve the items on the consent agenda, please?
So move.
Second?
It's been moved by trustee Mason, seconded by trustee Harris Jones. Roll call, please.
Aye.
Trustee Brooks.
Aye.
Aye.
Trustee Simpson.
Aye.
Trustee Mason.
Aye.
Trustee Wilson. Aye.
The consent agenda is approved. Old business, Ms. Sikowski. The famous water rate study.
Good evening, everyone. So tonight we have here with us Dave Nauman with Burns and McDonnell. He was last here in April. And at that time, he had presented our baseline financial plan for the village's water rate study. The financial plan showed the need for increased revenue in order to fund our maintenance, personnel, capital, and lead service line replacements within the village's water system. So tonight, Dave will provide several rate design options to consider. A rate design is a method a municipality creates to determine how much customers will actually pay for their water services. It helps to balance the need to recover the costs that are required for providing water, which includes infrastructure, staffing, capital, but also ensures the fairness as best as possible across the different types of users, such as commercial, residential, and industrial. So we'll welcome Dave up, and then following his presentation, we're happy to discuss further the various options that are being presented here tonight.
Good evening. Dave Nauman, Burns and McDonnell. It's been a pleasure working with your management team in the development of this study. Some of the information here is a little data intensive, and so if you have questions about what we're seeing, please interrupt me. We'll talk about it as we go through. So we'll spend a little bit of time recapping where we left our conversation in April. As Amy mentioned, we see the need projected to increase revenues at a rate of about 7.75% per year through 2034. That's almost the entirety of your lead service line replacement program. To create those revenues, we've developed 3 rate design options. One maintains the way you currently price your water service, and then there are 2 options that change that a little bit. And so we'll look at what those do and how they impact your ratepayers. And ultimately, we would appreciate your direction on what your preferred option would be in the rate design. We tend to recommend option 2, and we'll get into that here shortly. Just as a matter of milestones, this is the 3rd of 3 meetings. We're at the end of the study. We've developed rates. The next steps for us will be developing the report that describes what's been done and the recommendations can be done. So we'll go through a very brief summary of where we left things in April. We'll talk about what we see happening in your region with respect to rate structures, and then the rate design options that we've developed. So hopefully this graph looks familiar. The bars represent your cash obligations projected out through 2035. The green is your O&M expense. Blue is the debt service associated with the lead service line replacement. Purple is debt issued for other elements of your capital plan. So your water tower, there's about 3 debt issues in the program in addition to the lead service lines. And then blue is cash finance capital projects. You can see the line in black, the dark solid line is your revenue and existing rates. And so those 7 3/4% increases are designed to align the revenues with those projected expenditures. Any questions about what that's telling us? Yes, sir.
Real quickly, I know sometimes we speak in terms that may go over head. You said O&M.
Operation and maintenance expense.
Thank you.
Including your purchased water expenses, the source of supply is the majority of that.
Thank you.
That plan may play out differently, and what we talked about in April is ways that it could be better or maybe a little bit worse. And so there's a number of ways it could be better. The IEPA is offering principal forgiveness in its loans for lead service lines. They're not guaranteed. It's a competitive process. You have gone through the process for year one and had good results. We're not relying on lead service line principal forgiveness. So should that happen, that's an opportunity to maybe do something less than what we're showing here. You can also extend those loans to 40 years. That's a long time, but it's interest-free. It's 0% interest. And so your current approach and what the IEPA does most is 30 years. A longer term would soften the burden of that debt on your cash flow. There's a possibility you might get additional time to implement the program. We're assuming 10 years. That's been the guidance. It could get eased. You also have an option to examine paying for part of that program with your non-home real sales tax. And you could use that tax to back some debt that could take the place of those lead service line loans that we're seeing or complement them. And so that's another way to that would take the burden off of your rates and move it into your tax base. And then the last thing is IEPA provides loans for other types of projects. We have 3 debt issuances. So they may be good eligible projects that could get the benefit of lower interest rates. On the risk side, as you might have noticed, there's a lot of volatility in the federal government with respect to how they're funding things. And so the money that comes through IEPA ultimately comes through Washington. And so changes there can ripple through. It could affect interest rates on your loans. It could affect the lead service line principal forgiveness. So we'll have to wait and see on that. And then it's a difficult time to predict with a lot of certainty where we're going with respect to inflation, either on your capital projects or your operating costs. And interest rates have been pretty high, and then they continue to be that way. Those are ways that it could be a little bit worse. So let's talk about what we're seeing with respect to rate structures. And I think it's helpful to come back to another slide that we looked at last time. And this is your average water bill for a 4,000 gallon residential household, very common usage level for residents, households. And you'll see Homewood in the middle here, right at about the average. We've got 15 different communities here, a pretty wide variety of results. And right now you're right in the middle. What we're going to do in the next couple of slides is take a look at how those different communities are pricing their service for residential customers. And I think that can help frame the conversation we're going to have. This is your current rate structure. You've got 4 different types of rates, if you will. A standard rate, most of your ratepayers pay that. Sprinkler rate is the same as that standard rate at the moment. Schools and churches receive about a 25% discount off that standard rate. And outside village accounts rates are set at 1.5 times inside village. That's a very common practice and a very common multiplier we see used. Each of those 4 groups has a fixed fee that's an administrative fee or a minimum charge. Doesn't matter what you use, you pay that fee. And then the volumetric rate is currently $10.97 per 1,000 gallons of water consumed. So that $50 bill that we were looking at, or the $49 bill on the prior slide, 47. Most of that's coming out of that volumetric fee, right, at 4,000 gallons. So we're going to look first at the fixed fee. And what this shows you is for each of those communities, what the fixed fee is in the water bill for the various surveyed communities that we have. 3 of them don't charge any fixed fee at all. The water bill is entirely on the basis of volumetric. For whatever reason, I see that pretty frequently in Chicago, not really a lot elsewhere around the country. Most utilities will have some form of fixed fee because it helps improve the predictability of your revenue stream. And it helps recover your fixed costs because most of your costs are going to be fixed. You can see Homewood currently at the 366. The fixed fees range as high as $45 a month. So it's, again, a pretty wide variety, but the average across this group is about $15 per month in a residential fixed fee.
About 15.
15. Yeah.
Very interesting.
Some of them pretty high.
Some of them are very high.
That's pretty low.
Yeah.
I think I missed something
Yeah.
here. They have a fixed fee in addition to their usage.
Right.
So they're paying like Markham, for example, is paying $45 and their,
Volumetric.
And the volumetric. Now, the ones with the single asterisk, and Markham is one of those, has an allowance for some volume in that fixed fee.
got it.
So it's the average across this population was about 1.5 to 2,000 gallons a month. So that will be included in that fixed fee. It's one of the
Okay.
reasons why it's a
It's
little.
a base fee.
Right,
Okay.
but if you use 1,000 gallons in a month, you're gonna pay that 45.66. It's a way of ensuring a level of fixed cost recovery.
Sure.
And essentially it's a minimum bill.
So it's basically saying their volumetric fee won't kick in until they use a certain
Above
amount.
Above that.
Correct.
Similar to the way that like ComEd or NICWORD does the budget billing. Like that bill is just
Yes.
always the same.
Right.
Okay,
Your current $3.66 creates about $300,000 in revenue against about 5 million in total user charges. So you're getting about 6% of your revenue through that fixed charge, which is really pretty low. Probably half of your costs are fixed. In most communities, I would say it's closer to 80% of a water utility's costs are fixed, but in your instance, you're buying your water supply in the per 1,000 gallons. And so it's a variable cost. It makes your cost about 50-50, fixed and variable. You're getting about 6% coverage in the current charge.
Not enough.
The volumetric fee is a little different, so a lot less disparity. There is a range here. Again, you're right about average in that price per 1,000 gallons. There are some communities here that have stepped rates, so you'll have tiers up or tiers down from what's shown here. This is the first block, but that's the block that most residents would pay. So just kind of stepping back and looking at how your current rates and the structure compares to what's in place around you, your fixed fee feels pretty low. The volumetric fee feels about average. It's just context. It's context from we start talking about rate design, how we've designed these options. So any questions about how we see things around you?
We're in the middle on most everything.
With the exception.
Fixed fee.
But us being on the low end and fixed fee and having communities like Markham on the high end doesn't necessarily tell the story of the bill.
Right, which is why we start with that bill.
Yeah.
And you're in about the middle there. In fact, if we go back, let's look at how Markham fell out. So. Yeah, right next to you, actually.
Yeah.
Right, so part of that'll be the benefit of that volume and the minimum charge that they're charging. So that 45 feels high. Most of that is coming through that
Yeah.
fixed fee. Okay. Let's talk about the rate design options that we've created. There's 3 of them. The first one is your status quo. So we're gonna keep that fixed fee design, that administrative charge. We're gonna keep the volumetric fee exactly as it's designed. We'll just raise those price points. The rationale behind that is it's working, right? Your customers understand it. It's when you start changing rate structures, you can get different results on the bill depending on the balance of that fixed fee and volumetric charge. And it creates more or less increase. This is very predictable. Everybody would get a 7 3/4% increase. So it's easier to communicate to. The downside is you're not really addressing that fixed cost recovery, and we know your service charge, that fixed fee looks pretty low for your community. The next option 2, keeps a single volumetric rate, but on your fixed fee, we're going to increase it as your meter size increases. The concept behind that is that the larger meters cost more. The larger meters have access to greater capacity. It's a pretty common approach to water rate design. About 25% of the survey participants have meter fees that increase by meter size. So it improves the equity and improve your fixed cost recovery. It's not a game changer, but it's a start. And then the third option has the same fixed fee design as option 2. So it's gonna have a fixed fee that increases by meter size. And then on the residential volume, we're going to create 2 tiers of volume. The first tier is at a lower price to help with affordability concerns, essentially is what that does for you. We'll demonstrate how it works here shortly. The second tier is a higher price point per 1,000 gallons. So it kind of builds. You have no change in your existing rate structure in option 1. Option 2 flexes your fixed fee. Option 3 changes both your fixed fee and your volumetric rate design. So this is the slide where I've got a few things happening here, and that came out smaller than I hoped. So what this is trying to show you is on the left, you'll see the service charge, the price per bill by meter size. So it starts with 5/8 inch, that's your smallest meter, all the way up to 6 inches. You can see your existing charge at 366 is the same for all of those meter sizes. The volumetric section here is designed with those 2 tiers. And then there's a non-residential price point here too. So that'd be your commercial industrial volume rate. And your existing rate structure, it's all the same. It's 1097, regardless of who you are or what level of usage you're drawing. In that first option, which is the one that's showing in the column to the right, that's option 1. It maintains that rate structure. All the price points simply increase 7.75%. So it's all uniform, right? The same fixed fee applies to everyone, just like it does today. The same volumetric charge, the structure is the same. It's all just 7.75% higher. So I'm leaving option 1 on the board. You've got existing on the board. What you're seeing now is option 2. So that 5/8 price point, that service charge, is still the same. It's $394 under either option 1 or option 2. But you'll see as the meter size increases, that charge increases. So for a 2-inch meter, for instance, you're at $394 under option 1, you're at $1143 under option 2. So it's beginning to draw more of a fixed fee from your larger customers and your larger connections. Because we get a little more dollars from the fixed fee, the volumetric charge can be a little less. So what you'll see in the volumetric fee, everybody's still paying the same rate, regardless of how much you use or what kind of customer you are, but it's a little lower than option 1. Both these designs are creating about 7.75% more revenue. It just changes a little bit where that comes from. 95% of your meters are 1 inch and smaller. So you're very skewed. That's not uncommon. You're very skewed to small meters. You have a handful of larger meters, so you don't get as much revenue out of that as you might think. But it is a step in the right direction when you start talking about improving your fixed cost recovery. Existing option 1, option 2 still there. Option 3 has the same fixed charge as option 2. So it's increasing by meter size, just like option 2 did. Except in the volumetric fees, we have a lower price point for the first 2,000 gallons of use at the residential household level, and then a higher price point for everything above that 2,000 gallon threshold. And your non-residential customers, your industrials, commercials, will pay that higher price point for all of their use. There's no tiering in their rate design. The idea here is that 2,000 gallons is it's a non-discretionary amount of water. Everybody will be using, most households will be using at least that amount. And so by offering it at a lower price, it helps with some affordability concerns. And I'll show you in the next couple of charts how that translates into dollars difference by the type of customer that you are. So just to recap, all 3 options are designed to produce 7.75%. On option 1, everybody pays the same percentage. Option 2 improves fixed cost recovery and equity in that fixed charge. It's less impactful to residential bills. You'll see that here in a minute. Option 3 is even less impactful to residential bills. And so let's show you what that looks like. Before I turn the page, any questions about how the rates are structured?
So just so we're clear.
Yes, sir.
Option 1 is a across the board 7.75% increase.
Yes.
Everyone.
Yes.
Option 2 is the fixed rate would change based on the size of the meter, which would then impact the volumetric rate.
Right.
Okay, and then option 3 is fixed cost changes. And how does volumetric change?
We're tiering your residential use. So that first 2,000
2,000
gallons
would be at a
lower price point.
Okay, gotcha.
So this shows the impact for all 4 scenarios at once in dollars. So these are monthly bills. If you look down the left-hand column, you'll see the monthly bill volume. So it starts with 0. You've got about 8%. That percentage of bills column to the right of that is how many bills your residents had at these levels in 2024. So 8% of your residential bills had no volume with them. We focus on 4,000 gallons. You'll see it highlighted in blue. That's about 15% of your water bills. And so if we anchor there for the moment, that 4,000 gallon bill under existing rates is the 47.54. You're between $51.22 and $50.43, which doesn't feel like a lot of differentiation. I'll show you here in a minute, percentage wise, it's a little wider than you might think. But we also show the impact to some larger users at the very bottom. We go 0 to 10, and at the very bottom, you have some outliers in your residential class that have a lot of volume. And so when you think about high volume water users in the residential class, and we're changing that structure, I just included one here as an example of what would happen to their bill as well. About 70% of your users had bills at 4,000 gallons or less. So again, kind of skewed to the small side is very common for residential. If you go out to 10,000 gallons, you've represented now 95% of all your bills in the residential class. So there's 5% that are outliers beyond that. In the next slide, I'm taking the same information, but I'm focusing on the dollar difference. And so in the first table to the left, it's the dollar difference between your existing charge and in the bill under the proposed rates. So if we focus again on 4,000 gallons, you're talking about an increase of $3.68 per month in 2026 in option 1, all the way down to $2.89 change in option 3. So there's a lot of dollars on the page. I think the percentages maybe help tell the story a little better, because you can see in option 1 that 7 3/4 is uniform. Everybody is paying that change. On the fixed fee by meter size, option 2, you're getting a little less of an impact on your residential class because your fixed charges are mostly coming from non-residential. And then when you shift to option 3, you can see when you get into the usage, 1, 2, all the way up to maybe 6 or 7, you're getting less of an increase than you do under the other 2 options. But the really high water users will get more of an increase, and that's the 200,000 gallon one at the bottom is an 8.5%.
Do we know who that is? Like an apartment building that would have 1 water meter?
Industrial. Yeah.
But he said they're
They're-
in residential.
The
class.
residential. It could be maybe an HOA. I'm completely speculating because I don't know what those are, but
They look condominium association.
maybe, yeah. You do have a multifamily class, so it's not uncommon to have some users that sit in one class that, especially large ones like this, they might be residential related, but it could be an apartment, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I actually think the apartments over by James Hart, the water is included in the HOA. So it might be them.
That could be.
It's actually pretty common.
Yeah.
It's a little harder to size up the impact on your non-residential group because there's a wide diversity in meter sizes and there's a wide diversity in usage. So what I have for you here is broken up by classes. So multifamily, commercial, restaurant, brewery, and industrial. And then I'm pulling out common meter sizes for those classes. And for those meter sizes, the volume they're showing is the average usage for that meter size. So it's just another way to understand impact. These will have larger meter fees, they have higher volume, and so the dollars in the bills will be higher than what you saw on the residential side. the point I would make here, and you'll see it a little clearer on the next page, is if you're a small commercial, your 5/8 inch meter with low volume, you're gonna look a lot like the residential impact because your account is drawing water like a residential account. When you start getting into the larger meters, the impact to your bill is a direct function of how much volume are you pushing through that meter versus how much is that new meter fee, because the meter fee's gone up on option 2 and option 3. So let me show you that. So again, if we focus on the percent changes, again, option 1 is 7 3/4 for everybody. Option 2, you're gonna see some 7.1s. That's very similar to the impact that was shown on the residential bill. Because they're small meters with residential like usage, 3,000 gallons is the multifamily one there. As the volume goes up and as the meter sizes go up, you'll see those percentages go up. And so at the very bottom in industrial, you've got some pretty big meters with relatively low water use for as big as those meters are. And so they're getting an increase that's more in the 11 to 12% range. And when you go to option 3, the difference becomes more pronounced because they're paying both the higher meter fee as well as a higher volumetric charge in option 3. So a quick recap. In option 1 for residential accounts, if you're a 4,000 gallon user, that average user type in your system, option 1 is about a $3.68 increase per month in 2026. All customers share equally. If you go to option 2, it's $3.36. So as you go across the options, the impact of residential is going to come down. And option 3 is at $2.89. So they become less impactful and least impactful to residents. On the non-resident side, it's the opposite. In option 1, everybody's treated the same, but when you get to option 2 and option 3, you have more impact on the non-residential users in your system. And the bill impact is going to vary depending on how big the meter is and how much water they're pushing through it. When we think of the advantages or disadvantages associated with these options, some of them we've already talked about. In option 1, it's easier to communicate. It's a very straightforward change in the bills. It's easy to understand. Your customers understand that structure. So all of those are positives. On the downside, you're not addressing that fixed fee cost recovery. And so that's really the most negative aspect to option 1. In option 2, you're going to get some improvement in your fixed cost recovery. You're not going to move from 6% to 10% in a year. You would have to continue that for several years to make a meaningful change, but you'll begin to change it, which is it's taking the first step. It improves the equity that your larger meter sizes are contributing to your system, which is good. But changes in rate structure can be hard to communicate, and impacts can be a little difficult to project. And so there's a risk there that makes it just a little more of a hurdle than in option 1. In option 3, similar fixed cost change, right? So those advantages all stay the same. It's just more change from a volumetric rate structure, which is, again, another level of complexity to communicate to your ratepayers. If I come back to this regional bill comparison, we've got Homewood's current charge at $47.54 in the dark green. The light green show you options 1, 2, and 3, or in this case, 3, 2, and 1. And they aren't that differentiated. So what I'll do here in a second is show you how the rates would trend out for the next 5 years to give you some concept of where things go after 5 years of 7 3/4%. But it doesn't change this particular increase. The first increase in 26 is likely not going to change your competitive position much. We know since we pulled the survey, 2 or 3 of these communities have already raised rates and implemented them in May and June. So if this survey increased at 5% a year, which is about what's happening nationwide, then that dotted line average bar is going to go from $46 or $7 to $50, and it's going to compare pretty well with where you're at under either of any of the 3 options that we looked at. So this is the multi-year rate design. And we, under options 1, 2, or 3, we're implementing those rate structures in 2026. When you get beyond 26, in this example, we're simply doing across the board in 27 to 30. So just to give you a flavor for what 4 more years of 7.75% could do to bills, this gives you a little more context. You're going from about $48, $47 today to $50 in 2026. The 7.75 will compound.
Yeah.
And so the bill impact becomes greater over the long term. We would hope maybe there's room for improvement based on the opportunities we discussed from the financial plan. But if you do 7.75, this is what this would look like. It doesn't account for further changes in rate structure. So one of the things that I've talked to your team about is if we get some preference from you as to which rate design option you like, we can do a multi-year rate design that improves fixed cost recovery maybe incrementally over those 5 years to give you some perspective on what a 5-year change with further rate structure change would look like. This is simply across the board, but it gives you an idea. It's a ballpark of where we see things going.
But that's for a household that uses 1,000 gallons, an average, they use
4,000 gallons.
4,000,
It's monthly volume in 4,000 gallons.
Oh, this is showing 4.
Yes,
That's what the 4 is.
that's what the
4,000. Okay, got it. I thought we were multiplying this by.
Wow, we probably use 15,000.
All right. Our recommendation would be to implement option 2. And we come to that conclusion because it does afford some relief on your residential bills. It's not as much change to navigate. And so from that point of view, you improve your fixed cost recovery without as much wholesale change to who's paying what. It has the middle of the road impact on residential customers. It's just easier. It's easier to understand. It's a little more intuitive. But that's a matter really of policy. So that's where your feedback comes in. And we'd be interested in hearing that. All of those designs are created to create the same amount of revenue. So it's just a function of what sort of rate structure you prefer and what resonates with you.
Dave, give us the good news.
The good news? I think over time, you're gonna fix your lead service line problem. That's a big deal. And you're also taking care of water main replacement, also a big deal. You're not kicking the can down the road. And so you're being responsible stewards of your water utility, and it's one of the most precious commodities we have.
What about increased inflation for proper, the goods for the repairs infrastructure?
It's a risk. So we're expecting maybe 3 or 4% inflation. We think, but time will tell.
Is that accounted for in these options?
It is.
Okay, comments or questions from anyone in the audience? There's a heck of a lot to digest here.
It is. I do have one more slide.
Oh.
Just in terms of next steps. So interested in your feedback, obviously, and we'll prepare a draft report documenting the study for your village to review. And then the next step for you would be consider those 2026 rates in whatever form you take them in later on this year. Continuing into next year, right? Obviously, keep pursuing the lead service line principal forgiveness. It's the best incentive that you can get. And it's 0% loans for what isn't forgiven. It's just the best deal that you'll find. And so there's a process for that. We need to stay on top of it. Consider issuing debt to help fund some things beyond lead service lines in 2026. There's some planned capital improvements that would need additional funding. And then in each year in your budget process, you're going to be looking at whether or not the 7.75 still works, if things are better or worse. And then you can consider at that time if you want to change lead service line or fixed cost recovery.
Do you think the current administration is going to enforce lead line replacement?
I think generally there's a tendency to deregulate. So there's a potential that maybe you get more time. I don't think the requirement's gonna change. I think maybe how quickly you need to do it could change. But it may not. It may be 10 years. It's an important thing to get addressed.
Questions from the audience? Yes, ma'am.
I just want to make sure I'm understanding this, because I came to the April meeting, it was very interesting, thank you. So what I vaguely remember is that the lead pipe replacement is gonna cost about 10 million a year, am I correct? So over 10 years, 500 million,
It's about 76 million in lead service line, 100 million in overall.
okay, and, so per year, roughly, what'd you say, 7 million?
7.5, maybe.
7.5 million a year for the lead pipe, and we, this year at least, got 4.8 in the loan, right? Okay.
4 million.
4 million.
4 million, all right, and, the, 7.75 increase, what I remember from April, is that will help cover the costs regardless of what happens with these loans. All right,
It helps cover the cost, assuming you get 0%, but no principal forgiveness.
right.
Yeah.
Okay. Right,
Yeah.
and so if we don't get any future loans, the 7.75% increase is going to cover the cost? No.
So I would expect the loans to be available, whether or not they'll be available up to the amount that you want is a question, whether or not they've got the same 0% interest, or if you get lead service line principal forgiveness, those are more ways that could be worked.
But this year, next year, you've got 4 million and you're expecting to spend almost twice that amount. So you really only got half of it, right?
It ramps up. So the first year is a smaller overall project, and then it gets a little bigger.
So the 7.75, I think I've already lost track of what the question.
Yeah.
All right, so thank you, sorry, train left the station.
You're not
That's why I
the
have
only
to
one.
write it all
Yeah,
down.
we're all sitting up here with the same, the numbers flying through our head. Sure.
So as a resident, just from where I'm standing with my understanding of the numbers that you listed, the third option seems to be pretty good on the side of residents, and that's seeming like the most appealing option. But I'm also wondering, what everybody here thinks about, the residents paying less, but then the non-residents paying the higher rate, if that's gonna impact, the businesses in town, existing businesses or potential businesses will be picking up that part of the bill that the residents aren't paying. Wondering what you guys' thoughts are about that.
This is the first we've seen of all of this, so it's a matter of digesting it right now. We listened to his recommendation for option 2. We'll be looking at that, and at a future meeting, we'll be making a decision. But the board has to understand what it is.
Right.
I would say that's definitely considered, the other side of with option 3, because of the tiered rate on the residential side. For the village, there's kind of the fear of unpredictability of the revenue. Some people pay in order to stay on that lower tier, they may invest their water usage, so the amount of revenue actually coming in under option 3 is a little less predictable for us, so that's why option 2 and streamlining that a little bit more across the board for residential.
Drain is back.
The memory is kicked in.
Okay, so the question was, of the 7.75%, I heard you talking about inflation rate. So is the 7.75% covering the inflation rate?
It's yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other comments or questions? Some board comments, and this is not easy. Yeah. Trustee Harris Jones.
Justin, yes. Thank you for your presentation.
Trustee Willis.
Yes, thanks for all the information. It'll sink in eventually.
And Trustee Heisterman, your pen was going.
Lots to study.
Trustee Simpson.
Well, I believe our residents are intelligent enough to understand if we went with option 2 or 3. I don't think that's a problem. Investing in your water is so critical. It's about, if that investment is not made, and nobody likes increased fees or anything, eventually you're gonna lose ownership, because you're not gonna be able to afford to keep that. And what other communities do when they get in that position, which is where I'm employed in my community, they have to come up with the money, or they have to sell, and they sell to companies that we have no control over our fees. And the communities that have sold their water and their sewer,
They regret it.
triple, quadruple, Peatone is one of them, among many others. So yes, with this, it is controlled. It is a very controlled thing. We do not want to lose that. With this, we maintain control, we can have discussions, we can have professionals come in here and help us and advise us. If we do not invest in this and keep our water, we lose all that. That is very, very important for the community to understand.
Trustee Mason.
You know, I was actually wanted to talk about the point that you made, Amy, around the stability of the option. And that if we go with option 3, that you could have some instability in the revenue stream because of individuals trying to, you know, stay under a certain level. Yeah.
The other dynamic that can affect that is weather. And so if you get into a summer that is wet and cool, you know, compared to normal, and demand overall comes down, then more of your usage will be in that lower price tier than was planned for. That also contributes to some stability concerns there.
Yeah, and I mean, as a resident, I want my bill to be as low and as stable as possible. Even though I've got 2 daughters probably using 30,000 gallons a month, but so yeah, that's probably my house. So I do, wanna, and I think you guys have been really, really considerate of the impact to our residents, as well as the stability of the revenue
And
to ensure.
education. Informative.
Yeah.
Trustee Roman.
Yeah, I'm digesting a lot too. Like I said, I have to write mine down, otherwise I forget them. I keep going back to the residents in that I don't know what I think is the best option. So I'm glad that we don't have to make this decision right now. Sometimes we get presented with these things and we have to make the decision, and I was worried we were gonna have to do that. So I'm glad we don't, because I keep thinking about that HOA over by, I want to know more information about who is affected by the higher meters and the higher rates, because I personally know a handful of residents who are senior citizens on fixed incomes living in those condos. And this is going to fall back on them. The HOA is going to get increased. So as much as we keep saying this isn't affecting the residents, to your point, there are residents that are going to be affected, and there's small businesses that are going to be affected. And I just want to know more about how the structure of the water meters at these places. So that we really understand exactly how this is going to affect. Like it's very clear that option 2 and option 3 help residents in general, but I'm thinking of that as our residents who are in single family homes. We need to think about all of the people that are not in single family homes and how that affects them.
Yeah.
We look at the overall picture.
Right, and I know that that's more nuanced data, I guess we can call it, but I would like to know it. So that we really see what those numbers are for them. And our small businesses, the people that don't own the buildings that they are renting their businesses in, who already don't have the control over the rent. How, if we could get some information from maybe the HBA of how are the water bills addressed at the small businesses?
So, and correct me if I'm obviously if I'm wrong, small businesses are not high water. Restaurants would fall in that tier and multi.
Right.
Those, so you're saying you want to just kind of hone in on those, okay.
I mean, I would like to know more. I think that if we're gonna, we have to do something. That's obvious. We have to do something. And if we do option one, it's just across the board, everybody gets affected the same way. But before we make this decision, before I would feel comfortable saying, okay, I'm all in for option number 2. Because it generally helps our residents, I would like to know a little bit more about the residents that were not in single family homes.
Which can potentially be some of our most vulnerable.
Right.
Amy, you're able to do this? Good point.
We can drill down.
Okay,
I can help. I can try and get the HOA or contact information from the MLS.
so Dave, what you're saying is this is going to be a lot more reasonable than the tap water.
That's still expensive.
Absolutely.
Drink
Okay,
per
right.
drink, that's more expensive.
It doesn't taste as good.
As everyone on the board has said, we have a lot to look at. And we will be looking at it and the slides that you had presented, if you get that to the board. We want to see that, go over it, and we'll be discussing it at a future meeting for implementation. Any other questions from the board? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Zach.
General board discussion. If you heard it.
I would like to thank everyone that's here for attending our board meeting this evening. Also, I would like to thank Marla Youngblood, our events manager, Public Works, Police and Fire for your support in coordinating our great 4th of July parade. It was awesome. I would also like to thank the Preserve volunteers who offered food, refreshments, and games for all at the parade.
Thank you, we agree.
Yes,
Trustee Wood?
yes, agreed. The 4th, everyone who contributed to the 4th of July parade, thank you. It was a wonderful event, very well attended. Everybody had a good time.
Trustee Hyphen.
I agree, nothing to add.
Trustee Sampson.
Today was the funeral of one of our retired police officers, Alex Denman, I'm sorry. I had the privilege of working with Alex Denman, his brother who was a Homewood police officer, and his father who were a Homewood police officer. So just want to acknowledge his passing and provide condolences to his family and keep them in our prayers. So heard from the MAP union about the contract negotiations, how professional and peaceful and respectful everything was. So that was really good. And then want to talk about the 4th of July parade and all the events we've had. I agree with that. Fantastic. But there's something that a lot of people don't think about. A lot of times we only think about when bad things happen. When things go smooth, nobody notices. But there was a lot of effort put in by a lot of people. There was a lot of safety measures put into place. There was a lot of effort, and that comes through the leadership of the men and women over here. And I want to acknowledge that because those things don't happen by accident. No major incidents. You know, we had a lot of dedicated employees out there, but it was the leadership of everybody over here that made that happen. There was a lot of things behind the scenes that nobody saw. There was a lot of things behind the scene. Everyone was just there having a good time, which is what they should do. But there's a lot that goes into that, and there's a lot of efforts by everyone. So I want to acknowledge and thank everyone there. Thank you.
Thanks for bringing that up to our attention. Trustee Mason.
I had a great time at the parade.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, I had a great time passing out bubbles with kids. That was a lot of fun. After our last board meeting, I think it was that Friday, fire department was recognized for outstanding community safety partnership. Is that correct? So I want to congratulate the fire department on that award. And just thank everybody for being here.
Trustee Roman.
I have nothing to add.
Do I?
Thank you all for being here.
But then may I have a motion to adjourn, please?
Second.
Motion made by Trustee Jason, seconded by Trustee Mason. Roll call, please.
Trustee Harris Jones.
Aye.
Trustee Little.
Aye. Aye.
Trustee Hudson.
Aye.
Trustee Peterson.
Aye.
Trustee Hill.
Aye.
Trustee Roman.
Aye.
We stand adjourned. Thank you all.
Regarding the